Hi everyone. Today I'm going to go over the types of argument that you may choose from for your academic argument. And I am using Launchpad to reference the ebook. So if that is something that you would like to do, you can. Otherwise, you can look at the physical book. But I'm just going to go through each one of them briefly. To start, we have arguments of fact. And there are a couple of very important things that you need to understand about each one of these. So I'll model that with chapter 8 in depth, but then I'll just briefly touch on each of the others. It will be up to you to make a choice as to which type of argument you think works best with your topic, the one that you have proposed and had approved. If you still haven't done that, you're way behind, but you need to go ahead and do that on the proposal form. But assuming you have a topic, then arguments of fact are a little bit difficult to wrap your head around because they sound exactly like arguments of definition, but they are slightly different. So you might be thinking to yourself, how can you argue a fact? Well, one of the things that people like to always say is, especially now, this is my truth. Well, perhaps because you experienced it and that's how you feel, but is it a fact? I don't know. A fact in this sense, for this argument, for this paper, for our purposes in this course, is one that is widely accepted and based on evidence. So if that's true, then you may wish to provide additional facts or use facts to make an argument. Either of those constitutes an argument of fact. So what you have here is just a quick introduction about how that can be pretty different depending on who's making the argument or what perception there might be. We have to have evidence, and it's often supported with scientific evidence. So just so you're aware. We also in each of the chapters, but in this chapter we have, so that's kind of like an overview and under arguments of fact, and then you have understanding what they are. So bear with me, it takes just a few minutes to get that going. So here we talk about how factual arguments come in multiple varieties. They usually start with a question. So if your topic involves a question or you had a question that you really wanted answered, this could be your type. But people don't usually argue factual matters that are settled or undisputed. It has to be something that is controversial and that has to be solved with complex research, not just a quick Google. It's also sometimes difficult because we have fake news a lot and opinions out there, or like it says here, alternative facts. So you may be thinking about something in a different way than other people, and that might be your argument. But if you don't have the backup information or the person who you're analyzing doesn't have that, then you can make the argument that it's not true or it's not backed up with enough facts. So again, not many students choose this type of argument because I don't think it fits most people's topics for this argument essay, but it's in the textbook, and if you can make a compelling reason why you'd like to do it, then fine. The other important thing, of course, you can read about what characterizes it and how to develop it, but importantly here, you're going to look at the samples. And then you're going to really make a decision. Okay, does mine look like this? Is this really where I'm going? Is my topic going to make itself into this type of argument through my research? You've now done an annotated bibliography, so you've got a sense of what's out there. And you'll be doing more of that. But this particular one is called The Snacktivities and Musings of a Millennial Foodie. So when you read this, if you're considering the fact argument, then you will make a decision. Okay, how is it a factual argument, first of all? And then can mine look like this? Can the topic that I picked fit this format? If yes, wonderful. But I want you to check yourself again because there are always two argument samples in each chapter. Once you've done that, then you can make a decision. All right, yeah, everything I read here confirms the fact that I want to do an argument of fact. Great. Then you're going to complete journal number 4. But if not, you are, well, or journal, whatever number you are, but you're going to complete the assignment in which you have to explain which type of argument you picked and why. But if not, then go to the next one that you thought you might want to do, or look at all of them. You only need to read the chapter in depth of the type of argument that you are pretty sure you want to do. I'm not checking that you've read it, but I'm going to expect that you do, especially if you land on, say, argument of definition. You need to know that chapter very well. So for each chapter, you have the same thing. You have what it is, how to understand it, the types or the kinds of it in this case, how to develop it, a guide, and then finally 2 samples. So you'll do that, think through arguments of definition, evaluations, causal arguments, which, to back up, definition arguments are those in which you are arguing for a redefinition of something, some term, some concept. A great example I like to use in class is the definition of family. So a lot of times when people are dividing property or someone has passed away, and they did not leave an updated will, but had some like verbal contract, or they wished to leave something to another person. Well, if they did not write that down and have it notarized or tell someone like a lawyer, then it only goes to their blood relatives, and so, or their spouse. And so a lot of times definitions come up with things like family, where you might consider an aunt that's not really your aunt by blood, but someone you've known as your aunt your whole life, a family member. Well, understandably so, but you'd have to make legal provisions for her to be considered family if you were to pass away and wanted to leave something to her. So that kind of argument gets into a lot of legal issues. Chapter 10 evaluations it's more than a movie review, but you can kind of think of it like that, in that you may be looking at something like, is this the best, or is that the best? Is this what we should vote for or not? It's kind of one of those yes or no types of arguments. But what you do with an evaluation is you have criteria. So that's what you have here in the third part of the chapter. You must develop criteria by which to evaluate whatever the subject is. The danger we get into here is that you have an opinion and you're convinced before you even start. And that's not the way this research should go. You should have an open mind and be willing to draw your conclusion after you do the research. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, you're going to just go into the searching even for sources with bias. A causal argument is one that often comes from a historical perspective, but we are looking at the root cause analysis of some phenomenon, whether that is like, climate change, or, political divisiveness, policies, and then you're going to analyze those causes and make recommendations. Finally, a proposal is what most students land on if they have a question to research that, or questions that have value judgments in them. So like should or should not. Should we do this or should we not? Should people be allowed to choose the right to die? Well, in some states that's legal. In others it's not. And so you may say, well, here's what we should do. Here's what we've been doing, but here's what we should do now. So then you develop a proposal after you state the case, like what's going on, what's the issue. Then you develop a proposal for how people should proceed in the future. So those are the 5 types, but you will only read the one that you think, in depth anyway, the chapter that is concerned with the one that you really think you're going to move forward with. This will be how you organize your argument. So each student is going to do this a little differently. This will also be how you your rubric is set up. So each type of argument is just a little bit different in what it requires. And I am going to need to know why you're choosing this one and why it fits your topic best. So just saying, I want to do a proposal, here's my topic, that's not enough. You need to explain and you need to reference the chapter and in your explanation or your rationale as to why you chose this type of argument. So I hope that helps a little bit explain what it is you're doing, but everything you need ultimately is either here in the ebook or in your textbook to make the decision and then to complete the writing assignment.